Hello, and welcome to Sekahan. Today, why Japan's Prime Minister did not visit the Yasukuni Shrine on the anniversary of the war's end, and how the office itself changes what that choice can be. On August 15, 2026, Japan marked the 81st anniversary of the end of World War II. Prime Minister Sanai Takaichi did not visit Yasukuni Shrine, the controversial war shrine in Tokyo, on that day. Instead, she sent a monetary offering, paid from her own pocket, in her capacity as leader of her party, not as prime minister. 4 cabinet ministers, including the defense minister, did visit the shrine in person. And the government has given no official explanation for why the prime minister stayed away. Whether Japan's prime minister visits this shrine has been argued over again and again for 4 decades. Today we want to answer 3 questions. 1. Why has a shrine visit stayed controversial for 40 years? 2. How did previous prime ministers answer this same question? 3. Why did a leader with one of the strongest majorities in post-war Japan, 316 seats, choose not to go? Let's start with what actually happened. Let's follow the Prime Minister's day on August 15th. She mourned Japan's war dead in 3 different places under different titles. To Yasukuni Shrine, she sent a monetary offering as party president, paid with private funds. At the Nippon Budokan Arena, she attended the government's national memorial ceremony as prime minister and delivered the official address. In that address, she said the devastation of war must never be allowed to happen again. And the same day, she laid flowers at Chidori-Gafuchi, the national cemetery that holds the remains of unidentified war dead. 1 person, 3 sites, and a different title at each one. So who did visit? 4 cabinet ministers went, including Defense Minister Shinjiro Koizumi, the son of a former prime minister who will appear later in this story. 3 of the party's most senior officials, including the Secretary General, visited together. Japanese media noted that a joint visit by the party leadership on this date is unusual, and a cross-party group of lawmakers, roughly 80 to 90 members, made a group visit. China's foreign ministry lodged what it called a strong protest that same day. The protest covered both the ministers, visits, and the prime minister's offering itself. Meanwhile, Tokyo has offered no official reason for the prime minister's absence. Japanese media report that the autumn diplomatic calendar played a role, including the APEC summit that China hosts in November. But to be clear, that is reporting an inference, not an explanation from the prime minister herself. Before we go further, one piece of background matters more than any other. Nobody is buried at Yasukuni Shrine. It is a Shinto shrine, and Shinto, Japan's indigenous tradition, is organized less around scripture and more around kami, gods, or spirits. Enshrinement is a religious rite in which the spirit of a dead person is installed at the shrine as a kami and venerated there. So the shrine holds no graves and no remains. What it holds is a register of names and the rituals attached to them. This is the point most often missed in the English language debate, and almost every argument that follows depends on it. 2 more words you will hear today. A tamagushi offering is money presented to a shrine. A masakaki is a branch of a sacred tree placed before the altar. Both are ways of taking part in the rite without walking through the gate, and in Japanese politics, the money and the name attached to it are read as carefully as a visit itself. So who is enshrined there? More than 2.46 million spirits, people who died from public service in defense of the country. The shrine says they are enshrined equally, without distinction of rank or merit. A visitor cannot choose which spirits to address. The list is not limited to soldiers. It includes battlefield nurses, students who died in munitions factories, and people from Taiwan and the Korean Peninsula who died as Japanese subjects. It also includes those executed as war criminals after the war. But civilians killed in the air raids and the atomic bombings are not included. Their deaths do not fit the shrine's definition of public service. The question of who exactly the state should mourn begins right here. Now, the timeline that turned a shrine visit into a diplomatic problem. In November 1975, Emperor Showa, known abroad as Hirohito, visited No emperor has visited in the 50 years since. In 1978, The shrine enshrined 14 men who had been convicted as Class A war criminals, including wartime Prime Minister Hideki Tojo. Class A refers to the charge of planning and waging the war, tried at the post-war Tokyo Tribunal. The issue went international on August 15, 1985, when Prime Minister Yasuhiro Nakasone visited in his official capacity. By the Japanese government's own definition, that remains the only official prime ministerial visit in the entire post-war era. Facing protests from China and South Korea, the government issued a statement the following year, 1986. That statement built the framework that still governs the question today. That 1986 statement deserves a closer look. It said the official visit had drawn criticism that Japan was paying homage to those responsible for the war and risked undermining trust in Japan's expressed remorse. But it did not abolish official visits. Instead, it said such visits are not institutionalized, and whether to make one should be judged on each occasion. The result: prime ministerial visits were left neither prohibited nor established, suspended in between, with the judgment handed back to every new prime minister. That suspended state has now lasted 40 years. Inside that framework, how did prime ministers actually answer? Let's compare 4 of them. Nakasone made the official visit in 1985, then never visited again after the backlash. Junichiro Koizumi, in the 2000s, visited every year of his tenure. But he had pledged to go on August 15th, the anniversary itself, and he only did so once in his final year. He kept shifting the date. Shinzo Abe visited once in December 2013 and drew a statement of disappointment from the U.S. Embassy. After that, he sent offerings instead. And Takaichi has not visited, answering instead with her choice of title and offering. The choice was never a simple yes or no. It is a combination of timing, title, and offering, and each leader combined them differently. One more piece of background. Yasukuni is not the only place Japan mourns. The government's national memorial ceremony has been held every year since 1963, and the cabinet decision behind it never mentions Yasukuni at all. Chiragafuchi National Cemetery holds the actual remains of hundreds of thousands who died overseas and could not be returned to their families. Remember, Yasukuni holds spirits, not remains. The two sites are not the same thing. A new, non-religious national memorial facility was proposed in 2002. The advisory panel called it necessary, but deciding its name and location was judged premature, and the proposal stopped there. So how did Japan itself react? On August 15th, Prime Minister Takaichi skipped the Yasukuni visit on the war anniversary, sending a privately funded offering as party leader instead, and Japanese social media had a lot to say. What follows are posts that circulated on X, formerly Twitter, in Japanese, translated for this video. They are reactions on one platform, a temperature reading, not an opinion poll. The loudest reaction was not relief, and it was not approval. It was disappointment from the political right, framed as a question of keeping one's word. The most shared criticism of the prime minister came from Naoki Hyakuta, a novelist who leads a small conservative party. Before she became prime minister, he wrote, she said again and again that she would visit Yasukuni even as prime minister. Could it be, he asked, that she never actually expected to become one? Toru Hashimoto, the former mayor of Osaka, aimed at a different target, the party leadership's group visit, and he criticized it from inside the conservative camp. A visit, he wrote, is something you make quietly. Going as a group is a political appeal to conservative voters. He called it fashion conservatism. Criticism of the leadership also came from the opposite direction, not that the prime minister failed to visit, but that anyone in the leadership visited at all. A Communist Party lawmaker wrote that Yasukuni was made the spiritual pillar for driving the nation into war, and is neither a place of mourning for its victims, nor a place to pledge peace. And Hashimoto, in a follow-up post, laid out a structural proposal. Separate the wartime leadership from the ordinary soldiers, he argued, so the state can press its hands together for the soldiers. If even that is condemned, he added, Japan should make its case to the world. You may notice this runs straight into the enshrinement problem we saw earlier. Under the shrine's position, the 14 cannot be separated out. Posts defending the prime minister's decision were fewer, but they existed. The strongest argued that valuing Yasukuni and judging his prime minister when to visit are two different things. Is being a conservative about holding to your ideals no matter what, one user asked, or about making realistic judgments to protect what must be protected? In the numbers, criticism from the right outran the defense by roughly 10-to-1 in engagement. And here is the telling part. The offering itself, the thing the Prime Minister actually did, drew very little reaction in either direction. Whatever the offering was meant to accomplish, it did not register as a resolution to anyone. Now for the core of this video. Let's read the Prime Minister's conduct as a careful use of titles. In April, at the shrine's Spring Festival, she sent a Masakaki branch in the name of Prime Minister Sanae Takaichi. In August, it was a monetary offering from private funds as party president. Between the two occasions, both the title and the offering switched places. Was that deliberate design? We cannot know. There has been no explanation from her office. One caution, though. The idea that private money and a party title settle the constitutional question does not quite hold. Japan's constitution separates religion and state. In lawsuits over Koizumi's visits, courts looked less at where the money came from than at the outward form. The official car, the title and the visitor's register. And China and South Korea have, in past years, protested not only visits but offerings themselves. The second angle. The Prime Minister stands inside a machine built to ask this question every year. The 1986 formula left the judgment to be made on each occasion. So the visit stays suspended, neither banned nor established. Every new Prime Minister receives the same question and has to answer it again. Inside this machine, Koizumi's yearly visits and Takaichi's offering are two different answers to the same framework, which is why one popular generalization fails. It is not true that supporters of the visit always stop once in office. Koizumi is the counterexample. The third angle. This case narrows down what is actually holding the visit back. Let's rule out the explanations one by one. Explanation 1. The Prime Minister's domestic base is too weak to risk it. But her party won 316 of the 465 seats in this February's election, a two-thirds majority on its own, one of the strongest in post-war history. Ruled out. Explanation 2. The coalition partner acted as a brake. That has been the standard story for decades. But that partner, the Komeito Party, has already left the coalition. Also ruled out. What remains is diplomacy, the autumn calendar, including the APEC summit in China, and relations with South Korea. And remember, that explanation rests on reporting and inference. There is no official one. The fourth angle, how should we weigh the charge that she broke her word? Both sides have a case, so let's put them side by side. The critics, she presented the visit as a matter of conviction and drew conservative support on that basis. The defenders, by the time she won the party leadership, she had already shifted to saying she would judge at an appropriate time. The critics. If the course changes, the explanation has to come in her own words. The defenders. A private politician and a prime minister carry different responsibilities. The critics, core, someone who long said Yasukuni was not a diplomatic issue, is now reported to have stayed away for diplomatic reasons. That touches credibility. The defenders, core, putting the national interest first is not abandoning responsibility. It is what responsibility looks like in office. And note, others criticize from the opposite side, saying a visit should not even be considered. The same act is drawing opposite criticisms at once. The last angle. The same decision means opposite things depending on where you stand. Much criticism abroad runs. If she will not visit, she should not take hardline positions either. Japan's conservative disappointment runs the other way. The skipped visit is a retreat from conviction. Since today's Japanese reactions leaned heavily critical, let me also add the perspectives that were missing from them. Comparisons with Nazi Germany, common in English-language debate, have structural limits. Yasukuni enshrines its more than 2.46 million war dead as a single, undivided body. The 14 convicted men sit inside that body. They are not the point of it. That structure cuts both ways. It supports the charge that a visitor cannot avoid them, and the rebuttal that a visit aimed at 14 particular men is not even possible. And for families who never received remains, a shrine that holds their dead and a cemetery that holds remains are not necessarily interchangeable. Let's return to our three questions. 1. Why 40 years of controversy? Because the 1986 formula hands the question back, unanswered, every single year. 2. How did prime ministers answer? Not with yes or no, with combinations of timing, title, and offering. 4 leaders, 4 different answers. 3. Why did a leader with 316 seats stay away? Domestic politics cannot explain it. What remains is diplomacy. Though that, remember, is reporting, not an official explanation. Almost no one in Japan disputes that the war dead should be mourned. What has never been settled is the form, whom to mourn, in which capacity, and where. How should a secular national act of mourning relate to the religious mourning this shrine has carried? Japan has not decided. The mechanism built 40 years ago keeps returning that question every August. Next time a Yasukuni headline crosses your feed, we hope this framework helps you read it. The full analysis and the original Japanese posts with translations are on our blog. The link is in the description. Thank you for watching.